All right, folks, it's time for world politics. We're going to see what's happening on the political front and what's going on in world politics, as well as politics right here in the United States. We know a number of people are paying attention to what's going on in that Trump-Biden race. Some people are saying it's a race that they don't want, since it's the folks that are of the older age, and I can actually say that is one that is in the 60 age range and all along those lines. But I think one of the candidates is in his early 80s. The other one is in his late 70s. So they're right near each other. But some people are saying that they wish that there were more young candidates and that there were candidates that were doing other things along those lines. So definitely that is something that people oftentimes talk about, is this notion of needing newer and younger politicians that might be giving new perspectives to what's going on in the world and all along those lines. But that is what sometimes people say they want, and sometimes people say they want folks that are experienced and that they have a heap of experience in the political landscape. And that can be even on the kind of local level as well as the national level, and all in that space. As I was looking at one of the articles, they're saying that Trump is intensifying his grip on the congressional GOP agenda. So it looks like he is setting the agenda as to what the GOP will be talking about. And definitely that is something that folks are paying attention to as well. They're paying attention to what these issues might be, whether it is abortion, whether it is things around, definitely around women's rights, around immigration, around a number of other concerns that people have in that space and along those lines. So definitely they are saying that Trump is setting the agenda. And of course, he still got that whole slogan of "Make America Great Again," and all in that kind of way. But definitely they are saying that Donald Trump is tightening his stranglehold on the congressional GOP's policy agenda as he reshapes Republican lawmakers' party orthodoxy on the national security and social issues. And apparently his sway was on full display today as the House tried to take up warrantless government surveillance bill that was intended to unite the party. Then hours after the former president pushed to kill the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act reauthorization, 19 House Republicans did just that. So apparently he also successfully nudged most anti-abortion conservatives to accept his call to abandon a national standard, which was once a consensus position in the GOP. And then, of course, there's Trump's longstanding opposition to new Ukraine aid, which remains stalled on the Hill. So definitely it looks like he is showing, according to Politico, some proclivity for blocking GOP policy proposals that shape them affirmatively. And I do know that in the summer, we'll be having those GOP conventions as well as the Democratic conventions and all along those lines. So definitely even Senator Josh Hawley said voters are saying that they don't want the Republican Party of the 90s. I'm not sure what the Republican Party of the 90s was, but that's what some people are saying that they don't want. And of course, there is a number of other things that are going on, even with Mike Johnson and all in that space. So according to Senator John Conran, a Republican in Texas, part of the problem is that what I would call traditional Republicans have just assumed the status quo is going to continue. And obviously that's being challenged on a number of fronts. So it looks like this particular gentleman is running to take over from McConnell. And he says what it means is we're going to have to work harder to make the case for policies that we believe in. So maybe they're going to have some policies in that regards and all in that space. And by the way, Trump did say Arizona went too far in its abortion rulings. Mitt Romney is even chiming in on this conversation because he says most of our members will want to do what he tells them to do. I mean, that's just the reality. And that's what that retired senator from Utah said, the only GOP lawmaker who actually backed both Trump impeachments. I wish there were more that took my point of view on issues, but I represent a very small slice of the Republican Party these days. So like I said, that's just some of the political things that I'm saying. I might get to some other issues as well, but I'm going to bring in Rick and see what he's got to say about this whole concept and all along those lines, because they were talking about the nature of Trump's control over the Republican Party. Maybe Biden has control over the Democratic Party.
But all right, so Trump, if he were reelected, he'd go in with 4 years of experience having been president. Kamala Harris and Biden combined have 70 years of experience holding elected office. And a reporter recently did a study of how much they got done, each of them, Biden versus Trump. Regardless of what you think of their policies, how many of their policies did they get to enact? And Trump got almost nothing done. I mean, he appointed a bunch of judges, and he got a tax break for rich people and corporations, but he had 7 infrastructure weeks, got no infrastructure spending passed. So even on their own terms, Trump got very little done because Trump doesn't know how to do anything. And he doesn't seem like the kind of guy to have learned anything. He's lazy, he's distracted. Biden knows how to get stuff done due to vast experience, even in a very polarized time. And there's no candidate, even the fringe crazy candidates under 70. RFK Jr. and Cornel West, 70. Jill Stein, crazy, 73. Trump, 78 in 2 months. Biden, 81. So yeah, it's a bunch of old people. But of all the old people, Biden got old serving 50 years first on city council, then 36 years in the Senate, 8 years as VP, and it'll be 4 years as president, and he knows how to get stuff done.
Yeah, he definitely knows how to do things across the aisle, apparently, and it'll be interesting to see whether other people come in and disagree with us and all along those lines. But one of the other things that I know that people have been talking about is this notion that maybe, because I think even on this show, you've talked about Mike Johnson being a talking person, and I think Sasha has said it too, for Trump, but now he might be in trouble because, like I said, there are other people that might be getting his job and all along those lines, including a senator from South Dakota who has got a surprise candidacy because they are saying that things will be different next Congress when the Senate GOP leader, whether it is Conneran, who I mentioned earlier, Senator John Thune, who is a Republican from South Dakota, who is a surprising candidate, will be new to the job, and it definitely will be interesting to see what happens because the next election cycle, they said, could still see more Trump backers to the Senate, like Bernie Moreno of Ohio, Kerry Lake of Arizona, and Jim Banks of Indiana. So Romney has estimated that half of the Senate GOP is aligned with Trump, adding that for every member who leaves like him, the ratio further tips toward the presumptive nominee. So what are our thoughts? And have you ever even heard of this Senator John Thune? Like I said, I used to know somebody from South Dakota.
I've heard the name. I don't know anything about him. The Republicans have a better chance of taking the Senate than they do of holding the House because of the, I think, 35 Senate seats that are up. I think 24 of them are currently held by Democrats. So Democrats have to hold on to all 24, which is a tough thing to do. But the House, the Republicans are barely holding it with a majority of like 219 to 215 right now, I think, and have been the crappiest, least effective, most lunatic House in all of U.S. history. They've got 10%, they've got like 20% as much done as the previous crappiest House in history. They will likely lose, and the Vegas odds have them losing the House, so then Mike Johnson loses his job because he's Speaker of the House.
Yep, and that's what they were saying was that this Thune guy and Cornyn could possibly get the job. I don't know if Jacoby wants to jump in because we're talking about the hold that Trump has on the Republican Party. Both of those front-running candidates that I just mentioned said that they would protect the legislative filibuster because we do know that congressmen, whether they're in the Senate or the House, love their filibusters, and it looks like even if Trump tries to get them to stop it, they're going to protect that notion of a legislative filibuster if they are in control and all in that space. But what are you hearing about this whole notion of Trump being in control of the Republican Party?
Trump is in control of the Republican Party. Mike Johnson is in trouble because not only the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, but he is going to evidently the Democrats put out today that they weren't going to help save the FISA warrant due to the fact that that Trump is tanking the FISA warrant situation, and that puts Johnson in another bind. So Johnson is actually going down to Mar-a-Lago to see if he can get in the good graces of Donald Trump. But yeah, John Thune and Cornyn both act as if they want to take the position, but nobody's going to take that position because, as Rick pointed out, truthfully, they only have a 1 majority lead right now because of the retiring individuals that are there. But yeah, Mike Johnson is in a very bad position. He shouldn't have been there in the first place because he's not really that great of a guy. His stances and his positions, but he's there because McCarthy got ousted, and McCarthy's not that great of an individual either. It's just the Republican Party's really in the crapper right now.
It just really quickly, and this is for everybody, and Sasha, if you want to jump into it as well. I'm not knocking South Dakota. Like I said, I did know somebody from South Dakota many years ago, and I might have some other friends from that area, but that is not exactly a major metropolitan area. So should this guy win and all along those lines? Because I'm oftentimes thinking that they want leadership from one of the major urban areas, and whether that's Texas, California, New York, or a number of other places. But I'm thinking, how much of the country can he truly represent coming out of South Dakota, even of the Republican Party? But I don't know.
If Thune is a senator, so he's one of the most most powerful politicians in the U.S., even though he's from a dinky little state. I looked up something else, which a measure of how much trouble a party is in is how many of its members are deciding not to run for re-election. Mm-hmm. And right now, 26 Republican members of the House have decided not to run for re-election, which is over 10% of the House, which is an indicator that and some of these people have quit because they're disgusted with other Republicans, which doesn't happen often because they're your friends that you had, but
isn't the flip side
a lot of them are dropping out because of the way the Republican Party is going. Because right now it is the party of Trump, and whatever Trump says, the Republican Party does because they're fearful of the base, and that base is very rabid and will do whatever Trump says to do. That's why there are death threats on particular people just based on Trump putting out information or just doxing people. It's horrible the way the Republican Party is right now, because it's not really a party. It's just a cult of one personality, and that's the cult of Trump.
Well, along those same lines, because there was another article that I saw, we've kind of alluded to it on this show before I get to that article, but, there have been some people that have left their party, left the Democratic Party, and have switched over. I think there have been at least 3 or 4. So I hear what y'all are saying about the fact that a number of Republicans are deciding not to run, but then we've also got these folks that are deciding to switch allegiances in the middle of the race and everything. Because I know there's been at least 3 or 4 over the last several months, because it sometimes keeps the balance on the Republican side. So I don't know if y'all had any thoughts on that before I get to this.
I'm going to Google it. I'm going to see what the prognosticators, the statisticians who predict elections, are saying the House is going to look like.
Okay.
Because I don't know stuff, but Google sometimes knows stuff.
Google does sometimes know stuff. We can always Google it and check it out through Google. While you're looking that up and everything, one of the things we've been talking about, I know that Nick has been big on it, others have been big on it, and you've even alluded to it, Rick, and everything, is the perception of what's going on with the economy versus the reality. And apparently that's something that's hurting Joe Biden in several key states, because apparently voters and economists seem to have different views of the economy. So definitely several swing state voters are more focused on the economy and inflation than those nationwide, and they already have a dimmer view of the state of the country. So just if you go to places like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, even right here in North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and a state that I know also, Wisconsin, because that's where my college was based at, they're saying that the economy has improved in the past 2 years, but that's just 1/4 of the voters believe that. So that means 3/4 think that that isn't the case, even though the other hand suggests inflation is cooling and the U.S. likely is going to avoid a recession that seemed likely a year ago. So apparently there's a lot of people that are thinking that we're in deeper trouble than we actually are. So I just want
a recent survey asked people, how do you think your state is going? And a majority of people in the swing states said, yeah, my state's doing pretty well. And then they asked, well, how do you think the nation is doing? And they said, oh, not so well. So people don't know what to think. And 7 months till the election, we can hope, if we're on Biden's side, that people wake up a little bit, pay a little bit more attention, which voters do. Even like lazy voters start paying attention with 60 days to go. And, just look around and decide that on the whole, things are not, things aren't terrible. Yeah, things are more expensive than they were before COVID.
Yeah.
But wages are going fast, on average, faster than inflation.
By every economic measure outside of inflation, the economy is stronger and better now. Inflation was driven by, of course, COVID and the supply chains, and so you had, the amount of money being pumped in. So that was dealing with COVID, but also the crazy part is that I just read I read an article. I got to figure out where it was. I got to remember where it was. But it talked about the number one issue right now isn't even the economy. The number one issue deals with the culture wars that Trump propagates because of the fact that you've got immigration and you've got other cultural wars like the woke thing that people get upset about that don't even know the definition of. So these culture wars are actually creeping in to take the lead instead of the economy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even with the economy, they were saying that in North Carolina, where I know me and you are, Jacoby, they said that voters described the national economy in negative versus positive terms by 66% to 33%. Yet those numbers are reversed when asked to rate their state's economy. So they were actually thinking that we here in North Carolina are doing very good by a similar percentage in the opposite direction or in the flip direction. And they were saying that even in Wisconsin, negative views of the national economy outweigh positive ones by 16 points, while positive views of the state economy outweigh negative ones by 17 points. So it does look like people are thinking good about their own states, but not on the national level. And they even said that in the battleground states, 46% of registered voters, so that's almost half, said their personal financial situation is headed in the right direction. So they're thinking that they're actually starting to make some more money than they were making before the pandemic, and maybe even way before the pandemic. So
I googled what the House of Representatives is predicted to look like. 203 fairly safe seats for Democrats, 210 for Republicans, 22 seats up for grabs, of which the Democrats would have to make up 7 seats. But when you look at Arizona is mostly red, but they just the Supreme Court there just banned all abortion.
Yeah.
And that will send pissed off Arizonans to the polls, and that could flip 2 or 3 seats in Arizona. And we have Trump's trial beginning in 4 days, jury selection.
4 days, yes.
And his behavior in that hasn't been at all presidential. So it'll probably still be a closely divided House, but I expect the Democrats to have at least 222 seats compared to 213 for the Republicans.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, Steve, and I'm getting ready.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm sorry.
No problem. I was going to direct your question to Sasha and everything, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I want to just come on today, just wish everyone well on world politics, and just a few minutes before I go into a council meeting. It's just been a crazy month. I've been out and about, but great to see you, Sasha, and everybody on the team. What I will say before I go into session, I do plan to be on the show next Tuesday for the whole hour. is that I think a lot of what we see today, the presidential election will largely come down to the independent voters of this country of whether the economy is better. Now, what we will see, the data and numbers do show that there's been 15 million new jobs created since Joe Biden became president. Unemployment in our own home state of North Carolina is hovering around 3.5%. There's been about $31 billion of investments in North Carolina, many of them in green jobs, about 2,600 jobs created since the Inflation Reduction Act. These are batteries, electric vehicle manufacturers, semiconductors like Wolfspeed, which is silicon carbide, which these jobs are coming back to America. The challenge is the prices are still high, groceries are still high, housing prices are still high, and who's the better option? I still think Joe Biden, if he's continued in the White House, will continue these economic policies and the economy will rebound very soon. But it's going to come down to 4 states. I think with the Congress, I predict that the Congress is going to go to the Democrats because it's been such a mess with like Marjorie Taylor Greene now calling for Mac Johnson to be ousted. And I think that it's going to come down to that. But I think it could be a divided government with, a Republican Senate, Democratic House, Democratic president. So anyway, I think a lot of these things, and while we're saying all this, we've got the global issues going on. Ukraine, I want to get Sasha's input on that. I think there's a lot of imbalance whether Donald Trump takes over the White House, Republicans retain control of the House and Senate. Then I think Ukraine is done in terms of aid and support. Biden does look like he's really pushing back on Israel, which I think is good. I think that could win him Muslim votes in the swing states. And then you've got Donald Trump, who, if he's convicted or, brought down, then, open sesame, right? But I still think if I were a betting man today, I still think Joe Biden is going to win this election. I think in order to oust the president, they had to have done a very bad job. I think he's done a good job, better than good job, a very good job, but his biggest enemy is his age. So I'm going to end at that. Would love to see what you all say before I head in. I will be here for the whole hour on Tuesday. It's a divisive time. It's a scary time, but it's really an exciting time to be in politics. Let's just hope the apes don't eat the serum and start taking over, because sometimes I think they may do a better job running this government. I'm going to go see the Planet Apes movie next month. So
that'd be a great movie for you to check out and everything. Just really quickly, because that's what I was going to ask Shasha about and everything, because a lot of people have been noticing that the stock market has set records this year, and it was definitely on a strong uptick, and definitely people that are in the investment space like you are feeling flush and feeling like they're doing well and everything. But according to about a quarter of registered voters across the swing state that were surveyed by one of the major magazines, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, they said the ability for the average person to get ahead is moving in the right direction in the U.S. So that's a good sign. But I'm just wondering, do you think that the economy will be an issue in the whole election? And do you think people will get the notion of which way the economy is going correct? Or do you think a number of people are still worrying about their rents and their home ownership, and that could impact it negatively?
I would say that there's nothing really wrong with economy. It's a perception of what people think about economy. And I'll tell you that the latest survey I've seen, that independent voters, 62% support Joe Biden. 62. Well, maybe it's not such a large number. Maybe it should be 72 instead, or maybe 85. Who knows? Maybe by November, it will be that number. But right now, it's 62. Okay, now about war in Ukraine. Because of the Republican stance on the financing the war of Ukraine, which most of the money are staying in the United States anyway, and it's creating very good paying jobs. No, they are completely because of that's what Trump wants. He wants to help his friend Putin. Any help to Ukraine is stalled. Right now, Russia feeling that U.S. is not going to help Ukraine. They are murdering innocent Ukrainian people. It's only could be comparable. I mean, don't know to what the bombing of Germany in 1945 or Japan same year. That's what's happening now in Ukraine. The infrastructure is being absolutely destroyed. Ukraine is pleading to provide more Patriot missiles. It's the only system that can defend against despicable actions of Putin. But that's not in cards. So more and more Ukrainians, unfortunately, will be killed. European Union helps Ukraine. Unfortunately, they don't have Patriot missiles, but they do help in many other ways. But if US would continue its help in any measurable way, that would greatly help Ukraine. It would stop Russia in its tracks, and there would be no need to worry about what's the next Russian move. If they will conquer Ukraine, and President Zelensky just yesterday said very clearly, without U.S. help, Ukraine is doomed. It's going to
And
lose
and,
war.
and I want to I don't know, Sasha, if you remembered him, but I have to go, guys. But remember what Congressman Nickel? Remember when he came on our show, Sasha? Remember that
Yes.
when he was running? Well, he met President Zelensky last week, and
Wonderful.
and I wanted to let you know that, and I just wanted you to know that, and he knew that I told him that one of my analysts on my show, on the show, was from Ukraine, and he was he wanted me to pass on to you that he had a great meeting.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it was really, really productive, and he was really, really excited, and he's standing by Ukraine. So I want to give Congressman Nickel credit, and it's so sad that he's been redistricted out of his seat. But Lamparello is here. Professor, welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
I'm going to leave in a minute, but it's so great to see you. And
Great to see you too.
I'm not wearing blue because I'm a Democrat. I'm wearing blue because it's Child Abuse Prevention Month, and so that's the color of the month. So just want to be politically correct to my Republican friend.
Excellent.
Adam,
Well,
so I
it's great
would
to
like
see
to
you.
mention something that your friend Vladimir Putin is doing absolutely fantastic job to destroying all Ukrainian infrastructure, murdering thousands of innocent people in Ukraine. He's doing great job. Trump is very happy. Kudos. It's not going to last much longer, you'll see. But okay, so far that's what's happening.
So you're insulting Putin again? Up to your old tricks, insulting Mr.
I'm
Putin.
just saying what's happening. I'm not in business of insulting Putin. That somebody else will do. I'll just.
What is the factual basis for your statement?
Oh, really, Adam? The factual basis. You just look everywhere. Look at your right and look at your left, and you will see the factual basis. Read what's happening in Ukraine. I'm reading Russian and Ukrainian and European sources, and I'm really well aware of what's happening there.
Well, Sasha,
Sasha,
you make a lot of good points, Sasha. And my
Mark,
question
I've got to
is,
leave.
what's
I'll
the
see you
solution
Tuesday.
to this?
Adam, we'll see you on Tuesday. I got to run. Please come back on Tuesday.
Great seeing you, Steve.
Solution is this. You have to realize, that's what Europeans realize, but not US, that once, and the President Zelensky just yesterday said, that without US help, Ukraine is doomed. It's going to lose the war. Once that happens, then Putin is free to attack Baltic states, Moldova, Poland, and many other European countries. Now, a lot of these countries are members of NATO, and there is Article 5 that will be invoked. However, if Trump will be president, U.S. is not going to act in accordance with Article 5. President Trump will say, you know what, go to hell, deal with Russia, okay, so just resign, just give them everything, okay, give them the Eiffel Tower, or give them the whatever.
What do you mean by U.S. assistance? How do you define U.S. assistance?
I define U.S. assistance, number one, providing Patriot missile systems. Okay. Number two, providing the other necessary means to fight Russian aggression. There is no war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine never ever started that war. The invasion started by Russia exactly on February 24th, 1922. It's already third year, and if US would provide the necessary means,
Do you think they can negotiate a ceasefire?
no, no one is interested in ceasefire, neither Russia nor Ukraine.
So what solution is going to satisfy Russia and Ukraine?
No solution until somebody will just die. That's the only one solution.
Well, that's unfortunate.
It is
That's
Right.
very unfortunate. Everything. But
I
speaking
agree
of
with you, though,
those kind of-
Sasha. I tend to agree with
Just
you.
Hey, Sasha,
just a quick
Sasha
thing.
and Adam.
Why, when we're looking for a solution and one country is illegally invading another, why should we satisfy the country that's illegally invading?
Are you talking about the Iraq War, or are you talking about the Russia-Ukraine War? Or are you talking about the Vietnam War? Which one are you talking about?
Talking about the war that we're currently talking about, which
Oh.
was the illegal invasion of Russia into Ukraine. So why are we looking for satisfying Russia? Because Russia's only looking to take over and basically boot out anybody who's against Putin and murder anybody that does that and take over Ukraine. That's what Russia wants.
Because we want to
So
save
in
lives. That's
terms
why.
of the status, in terms of so why are we looking to satisfy them when we are there to support a sovereign nation?
Because in complex negotiations, you have to give something to both sides, or else it's not going to work.
There are no negotiations. It's irreconcilable differences
But
which cannot be negotiated in any meaningful way.
So are you saying, like, you say we should destroy Hamas? Are you saying Russia? I mean, there has to be a solution, because we're not just going to destroy Russia. There has to be a solution where both can coexist.
Adam, do you have a
the
good night
best,
sleep because you are jumping from Vietnam to Ukraine?
yeah,
I was saying that only because
every
Jacoby.
situation is not the same though, Adam. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to say that the situation with Hamas and Israel is the same as Russia and Ukraine. It's not. You're trying to say that what happened in Vietnam is the same as what's happening in Russia and Ukraine.
That's
It's
right.
not. That's a poor tactic. What it is this situation is different because you had one giant country invade illegally a very small country. So what, in terms of the solution that we should be looking for is, yes, protecting Ukraine the best that we can, providing the, as Sasha pointed out, the Patriot missiles, providing money, providing other weapons to protect themselves so they can actually hold on and protect their land that they have from an
What did
illegal
we do when we
invader.
invaded Iraq?
So you're trying to relate issues that aren't the same. So
I'm
again,
saying the
you're
US is not morally superior.
Adam, please. You asked me for a solution. Now you're trying to move the goalposts. Let's not do that. We're focused on one solution for one problem right now. Not
Okay,
moving the
what's the
goalposts.
solution?
Stop. We're not moving the goalposts to say it's like this. It's not. So the solution that
It
you
was worse with Iraq.
stop, Adam, stop. You're
What's
good.
the solution?
Stop. I'm trying to. If you keep interrupting, I can't say it, can I?
All right,
Okay.
fair enough.
So, as I stated, and to co-opt what Sasha was saying and back him up, yes, we need the Patriot missiles there. We need the weapon systems there and the weapons to protect Ukraine. Give those to the Ukrainian people. Also, providing funds so the Ukrainian people will not starve and they will be able to rebuild their power plant that Russia actually just took out. So we need to provide funds. We need to provide weaponry and other defense systems so Ukraine itself can protect and defend itself against an illegal invader. So therefore, that solution there, we don't throw troops on the ground. We don't throw anything on the ground because the Ukrainian people have showed that they are strong enough to defend themselves. All they need are the tools to do so. So we just provide the tools. Then at the end, as Russia begins to pull out, because at some point they are going to have to, because they're running out of or they're running out of soldiers to keep throwing in there. They're throwing prisoners in there now. So as Russia begins to pull out, then we begin to bring Ukraine into other groups. I am for Ukraine joining the organizations like NATO and so on and so forth, because I think they should be a part of these giant They provide so much grain to the global population that they are deserving to be there, because they should be at the negotiating table on a lot of the economic issues and a lot of the world issues, because they provide a lot for us. So I think the solution is not only the weaponry, not only the defense systems, not only the financial setups, but also in the end, get them into like a NATO. So therefore, Russia cannot jump at them without us tripping article. I forget the article. And the only time that article has ever been invoked was when it happened at 9/11, by the way.
Can I ask you and Sasha a question?
Yeah.
What if the solution that you're proposing actually exacerbates the problem rather than alleviating it?
What do you see as the problem?
So I
Russia's
think that is a fallacy.
Yeah.
You're saying that, oh my gosh, if we do all these things, it's going to make Russia do more. What? If they are isolated, pushed back from the actual area if we are shown to protect our allies, Russia has no reason or no ability to go at the other allies. So if you're thinking that, oh, well, if we do these things, Russia's just going to blow up on everybody, that's not going to happen, because they're not going to be backed by
I think it might. I think it might, because they're going to feel like their security is threatened, but I'm not sure.
Who would they grab to help them out? They can't grab China. China's trying to play both sides. China would back out of that situation. They would have to grab Iran. Iran really doesn't have any partners that's going to be able to do much of anything.
I think they've become more aggressive in Ukraine. But Rick, why don't you? What are your thoughts on this?
I want to talk about, we've got 207 days until the election, and it's a very different political landscape for Putin depending on who wins. So I kind of wanted to talk about what might happen in Russian messing with us, China messing with us between now and the election, because it's predicted that the shenanigans will be huge. Also, with what the two candidates will do. Trump goes on trial, and ideally for him, he wouldn't be like a whiny baby on trial.
Hey, Rick, Kevin.
But hold on. Let me just finish my thing. Biden recently reintroduced his plan to reduce student loans for 30 million Americans. He just announced universal background checks. I assume Biden will continue to announce new policies that are favored by most Americans. I don't know what Trump's, but so we should talk about what the next 7 months look like.
We're just along those same lines and everything. And Adam, I don't know if you heard this, and I'm not saying that I agree with it, because I think that some of it is media hype. But as we remember, there was accusations of the Russian interference, and most people say that there was some sort of Russian interference in some of the last elections, and now there are already reports of China being involved in interference in this coming election, whether that is them going to interfere for the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. That might be left up.
Did you read the Mueller report?
What did the Mueller report say? Let me know about the Mueller report.
It really debunked the idea that Russia was actively interfering with Trump. Now, do other countries interfere in elections? That depends on what you define interference, how you define interference. We do it in other elections all the time. You guys are acting like this is something that's so uncommon and so dire. It happens with every country, and we do it all the time in other elections. You ever hear of the Shah of Iran?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, give me a break.
No, we've definitely interfered with other people, and I said that before.
Russia has been messing with our politics for 100 years.
Right, and we've done the same. So what's the big deal?
The big deal is that we should talk about what kind. I mean, yeah, we don't we could admit, yeah, the U.S. engages in political interference throughout the world, but we're the ones who are going to be interfered with over the next 7 months. So we should talk about what shapes, and also does the interference in, if Trump falls behind, Biden's been gaining in the polls, he's been gaining in Vegas odds. Does that mean that Putin works harder to push for Trump on social media, or does Putin give up and see Trump as a lost
Rick,
cause?
are you prepared on the interference note to condemn the media, particularly NPR, after one of its editors came out and said they are intentionally biased against Trump? Are you prepared to condemn them for that?
I'm prepared to say that, like, you guys like to accuse, conservatives like to accuse the media.
I'm not a conservative.
All right. Well, but conservatives do like to say the media has a liberal bias, and a majority of people in the media are liberal. But then liberals like to say, and I'm with them when they say it, the reality has a liberal bias and bullshit has a conservative bias. So, yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're against interference, condemn the liberal media. But Tovi, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
To respond to that, I'm prepared to be more pissed off at both sidesism when Trump is like a sleazy lunatic in a lot of ways, and then the media tries to present like, well, there are good people on both sides, like Trump said. I don't like the both sides.
Okay.
I'm more pissed off about that than I am about bias.
Adam, I'd like to address, you just referred a minute ago to Mueller's report. Have you ever read Mueller's report, Adam?
No, I've read excerpts of Mueller's report, but I've not read the entire report.
Excellent. I also read excerpts, and I also read entire Mueller's report.
Okay.
What I'd like to remind you is the special counsel investigation uncovered extensive criminal activity. The investigation produced 37 indictments, 7 guilty pleas or convictions, and compelling evidence that the president obstructed justice on multiple occasions. Mueller also uncovered and referred 14 criminal matters to other components of the Department of Justice.
Then why didn't he recommend prosecuting Trump for those?
I haven't done yet, no. Trump associates repeatedly lied to investigators about their contacts with Russians, and President Trump refused to answer questions about his efforts to impede federal proceedings and influence the testimony of witnesses. A statement signed by over 1,000 former federal prosecutors concluded that if any other American engaged in the same efforts to impede federal proceedings the way Trump did, they would likely be indicted for multiple charges of obstruction of justice. Are there any comments, please?
Okay, this is a Business Insider article on the Mueller report. A summary. There are at least 101 known points of contact between people associated with the Trump campaign and Russian government-linked individuals from November of 2015 up to January of 2017.
And why didn't Trump face charges? Why didn't he recommend prosecution?
Mueller did not consider that it was his job to indict a sitting president.
Why don't you read the words of the Mueller report that said there was insufficient evidence of collusion between Trump and the Russians? Why are you guys omitting that? You like to cherry pick what favors your side. You talk about both sidism. Well, you're doing one more worse than that. You're doing one sidism, and that's not fair.
Mueller did say there were 10 instances of obstruction of justice.
What else did he say?
Hold on a second.
Hold on, I'm sorry, my phone crashed just a second. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say the Mueller report itself did not disprove that there was no collusion between Trump's group and the actual and Russia itself. Because there were also instances where Mueller was not allowed to talk to particular individuals due to the fact of legalities and people not wanting to, or he couldn't subpoena individuals. So the Mueller report itself was incomplete. And it did not say that there was any direct communication between Trump and the Russian individuals. However, it did not prove that there wasn't, because there was connections between all of Trump's multiple areas within Trump's camp and Russia. So therefore, it's hard to say that you cannot definitively say that, oh, it did not prove, it showed that there was no Russian collusion. No, it did. It incorrect.
Can you definitively say there was?
Did it definitively say that there wasn't, Adam?
It clearly said that there was.
I agree with you, Jacoby.
Hold on, there was collusion between Trump's campaign.
Thank you for proving my point.
Between Trump.
No, I didn't prove your point.
It did not.
It's okay to agree with me. I'm not the devil.
But again, also, Adam, one thing that you're forgetting, the problem that you brought up, the issue of, oh, well, what is the problem with the Russian propaganda machine being a part of, trying to influence this and that and the other thing? Well, right now it's a problem, because right now, when Russia would put information out there, yes, it would go after different conspiracy theorists. It had RT News and people would follow that. But now it's making it onto the floor of Congress. It's also being utilized as a way to impeach the current president, because literally they're using Russian propaganda to go after Joe Biden. So this is the problem with the Russian propaganda and that being there. Yes, there are times when, yes, even the U.S. has tried to put out information into the other countries to try and push other leaders ahead of, the leaders that we did not like. However, this is more of a guerrilla war tactic. It is actually being utilized in a negative manner. For example, the reason Russia wants Trump to be president is because Trump is trying to dismantle NATO, is also going to pull funds and isolate the U.S. from its allies. So therefore, then Russia can push back and take over Ukraine. It can actually take over the Baltic states and wherever else it wants to go. So it is a problem that it is actually at the upper echelons of the Republican Party, not the Democrat Party. It's not a one-sidism. It's actually a reality. And until we can be honest about that reality, we're sitting there having.
If you don't think the Democrats are controlling social media, censoring opinions, then you are.
No. You are saying that based off an opinion.
I don't want to take.
You're saying that based off an opinion. You have to prove it. There is documented proof about the Russian propaganda and GOP.
One crazy thing is that Republicans have been
the Mueller report doesn't say that
about Russians under every bed for generations. The whole Cold War, the Red Scare of the 50s, and now when Russian fiddling with us and Russian propaganda is more obvious than ever, how so many Republican politicians are just laying down and sucking.
Why do you care, Rick? Why do you care? This is par for the course in every election. We installed the Shah. We overthrew Saddam Hussein.
It arranges tens of millions of Americans. It interferes with our election. I don't like it, and it interferes on behalf of the side that I'm against.
It happens all the time. I mean,
See, Adam, what you try and do, this justification that it's okay, it's not okay. Two wrongs don't make a right. And just because somebody's like, oh, well, there was Saddam Hussein, and that was completely different of what was going on. This right here, this is a problem.
What happened to Jacoby?
I'm still right here. But again, it is essentially a problem. So therefore, no, do not.
Why is it a problem? You can't quantify the effect it has on the election.
Adam, I have quantified it. Adam, I have quantified it. It's been quantified. But what you end up doing is saying, well, hey, everybody does it. No, that is turning a blind eye to the injustices of things that have happened.
Yeah, that's like saying that the war on drugs is
you want
a
another
good idea because
you want another
we can still do something. The reality is people are going to do drugs.
Adam, literally. Again,
I bet you're against the war on drugs. I guarantee it.
No, I'm not going to
Wait,
say
I
that.
am. So hold on. So I would like to see the war on drugs changed, because before the war on drugs, the cartels did not run Mexico. We should figure out a different way but we're not gonna. But the war on drugs gives power to gangsters in Mexico.
My only point, Rick, is that this is a reality that's not going to go away. And we can complain about it all we want, but it is what it is. And we
Okay,
have
so
to deal with
I
it.
can
All right.
grant you that point, but we can increase awareness of it. We're going to say, yeah, that this is what the Russians are doing this time around.
Hang on a second. Hold on a second. Speaking of things that won't go away because we only got a few more minutes to go and everything. Speaking of things that won't go away because we only got a few more minutes.
What happened to Jacoby?
I think he was going on doing a parent ride, so hopefully he'll pop back.
Sasha, what do you have to say about all this?
But I had a quick question for both of you and everything, and then I definitely waited from Sasha because I was kind of agreeing with you, Adam, because definitely it has happened before where we have impacted other countries, whether it's Nicaragua, whether it's Iran, whether it's a number of other things. But one of the things that people are speculating about, because I think even Rick has brought up this notion of the division in the country, and I know you brought it up as well, is this idea that maybe neither candidate will be on the make it to the election because there are a bunch of crazy folks out there, and one of those crazy people may take a pot shot at one of these folks and they not make it because they point to examples on both sides, because David DePape, a right-wing conspiracy theorist, was convicted of an attempted kidnapping of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and definitely Nicholas Roski was doing the same on terms of trying to plotting to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was a Trump nominee at his home in 2022. So we do have some crazy folks out there that guns.
I mean, the last president to get hit with a bullet was Reagan. Mm-hmm. I think the Secret Service is pretty good at its job, so I would hope that is not the case.
Well, I'm going to say one thing about Rick, okay? So here's the thing. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Rick and for Sasha, but with regard to
you'd have less if you really knew me, but okay, thank you.
Maybe that's goes both ways. I don't know. But he's tremendous. Rick is tremendously intelligent and brings facts and evidence to conversations. What bothers me a touch, though, is that you're so biased towards a liberal point of view. I would think that you would be more balanced sometimes, and I'm not saying that as a criticism, but it seems like you're construing information in a way that comports with what you want your point of view to be, like confirmation bias. And I suppose I do the same thing.
Have you ever watched Naked at Night, Adam?
I'm almost certainly guilty.
I don't mean to criticize you. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying.
Have you ever watched Naked at Night?
Confirmation.
Have you ever watched Naked at Night?
I'm willing to believe the worst of Trump and his people, and I give more grace and slack to my people.
Sure. Why?
Because I think Rick, on the flip side of that, one of your best friends is
all right. That's fair. I mean, that's a fair point.
And y'all have a show together, so
I respect that.
Y'all don't agree oftentimes on issues.
Yeah,
but
well, I feel bad about that because my show, I platform a super Trumpy guy, and he gets to pump out Lance listens to 10 hours of podcasts a day, all super conservative, Hannity, and even more so. And he's able to take the arguments he hears there and pump them out through the show. And that kind of bums me out. But on the other hand, I don't know. It's what we're doing.
What do you think, Sasha?
See, I think that with all other things being equal, when you're talking about the choice between Biden, whose only fault is that he is and looks old, I don't have anything else against him because the economy is superb and doing extremely well and will do even better if interest rates will start coming down. Okay, yesterday's report indicates now that it's not going to happen in May or June, maybe July, but maybe even not in July. Maybe not even this year at all. So there will be an economy where everything will be more expensive. There will be a little bit more inflation. It's not inflation when people pay $5 per gallon. It's not there, but it's a little bit more than 4 years, 5 years ago, and that's okay. It's an economic cycle. Biden is not saying to gas stations, okay, raise prices, charge them $5, no, $6 a gallon. So it's not Biden. It's an economy. It's natural forces of supply and demand and many other things.
So you live in Canada, right? You live in Canada.
Yes.
So do you feel like you're interfering in the U.S. elections by going on social media and condemning Trump? Are you an election interferer?
I don't think so, because we have the same freedom of speech and we can voice out. Actually, I'm not bashing Trump on social media. I just don't have time for that. And I read sometimes social media, but I don't really put.
That's fair. But if you were, would you be interfering in the U.S. elections?
If I were, okay, what I would say is, okay, there is a clear choice between Biden, who is not perfect, but who has done a great job of being president. And if you can go through motion of emphasizing, oh, he's old, his looks old, and he cannot, well, is he going to run a marathon or anything like this? He needs to be in purpose? Probably not. Now, on the other hand, you have a man which is, I don't want to spend our time to mention all indictments and all the horrible actions that he has committed, not just by being president, well before being president and after being president, and all that. So you must somehow, Adam, convince yourself that at least, okay, maybe he murdered people, maybe he's the big evil of evils in the whole history of the world, but. And there has to be so much but. I even don't know what you can propose to go through the motion and forgive all his shortcomings and indictments and everything else what this man's done throughout his life. Saying that in spite of all that, I think we have to vote this person in the office. And I just can't come with anything, whatever you would say would justify that.
Here's my argument against Trump. I'm not overly optimistic about government's ability to transform the world, but I am optimistic about technology's ability to transform the world. And I think it's more likely that we can continue to be a technologically leading country with sane, maybe somewhat mediocre government. Under Trump, we get crazy, incompetent government, and that's anti-science government. And I want just regular, normal government like we've had for most of our lives that provides just a reasonable space, a reasonable nation for technology to happen in.
Yeah, I just think one of the depressing aspects of this conversation, I hate to say it, I feel like you guys aspire to a reality that doesn't exist. Maybe Trump's flaws are more obvious to everyone, but every single president before him has done things similar, if not worse. And one of the most depressing things of growing up for me was to realize that what lies behind the curtain is really kind of like the Wizard of Oz. You know, the emperor has no clothes. And I think you guys try to hope for something better that doesn't exist. And it just depresses me. Because
I just said I didn't. And you can go through, I agree with you. You can go through every president and name decisions they made that led to the deaths of thousands of people.
Right.
Lance and I argue about like going into Iraq, 500,000 people dead, then pulling out of Iraq too soon under Obama, another few 100,000 people dead, knocking down Gaddafi in Libya. Gaddafi, a horrible guy, but knocking him down leads to a failed state, another couple 100,000 people dead. So yeah, every president.
I just don't want to go through the depression anymore that hope tempts you to. This is the way the world is, and this is the way the world will always be.
And speaking of that depression,
it's a choice between two depressions, and I choose the latter.
Well, speaking of that depression and getting ready, because we're getting ready to end the show, got another show coming up shortly. and everything, that being Coco McMillan's show and all along those lines. And we can bring it up on Tuesday. But I have been seeing more rhetoric lately, and I hope that it does not come to pass. But with the activities that took place last on January 6th of that particular year and everything, there has been more rhetoric about this notion of certain states dropping out if a certain election does not go their way. So that is one of my fears, is that we actually could be heading toward a civil war of types. I don't think it'll be brother against brother the way it was in the Civil War, but I could see some of these states literally
I keep bringing this up, but Civil War is on the way. There's a movie called Civil War that is about this that comes out, in 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. It's creepy timing, but we will get to see it play out on the movie screens.
Yeah.
All I would say, guys, is that we all want to believe that our significant others love us, when the truth of the matter is they only like us. And that is a metaphor for life. And if we can't accept that, then we're setting ourselves up for more depression than the depression that confronting true reality already engenders.
That could be a good point. And on that note, we'll get on out of here, but we'll have more World Politics next Tuesday, and we'll have more World Edition on it tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And of course, other
great seeing you all
as well.
You too. Thank you,
all
Adam.
of you folks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.